Hola clase, ¿cómo está? Yo espero que tú estés muy bien. Hoy vamos a continuar con el subjuntivo, aka the present subjunctive. Here's a quick review of what the regular verb endings look like for AR, ER, and IR verbs. So if you'll remember the three steps, we go to the yo form, we drop the O, and then we add the opposite ending. So if you need to review how to form the present subjunctive, you can go ahead and go back and look at one of the PowerPoints to do that. Today, we are just going to be looking at another way that we can use the present subjunctive in conversations. So here's our acronym Weirdo Cat. And if you remember, each of the different letters represent a different way that we can use the subjunctive in our conversations or when we're writing. So we've already learned about the I in Weirdo Cat, and it stands for impersonal expressions. Today we're going to learn about the W, and the W stands for wants and wishes. Oh boy. So I can think of a lot of things that I want right now. Like, I want to go somewhere really bad, like just to leave my house, even for like 5 minutes, whether it would be going to the mall or going out to eat or going to see my friends, just anything to get out of the house. I would love that so bad. So I can imagine that there's a lot of things that you want right now or that you wish for as well. So hopefully we can use that as inspiration as we're coming up with some sentences here. So wants and wishes. We can use the subjunctive when one person wants another person to do something. So think more of like the things that you want other people to do. So not necessarily things like that you want to do, because we have control over like what we want to do, right? Like if I say I want to go eat some chocolate, then I would just go eat some chocolate, right? And you guys wouldn't even know because I would just pause this video and go eat some chocolate and then come back. But if I want someone else to do something, like if I want you to buy chocolate and send that to me, I don't really have very much control over that, right? So think about things that we want other people to do. When we're wanting other people to do something, that's when we have to start using the subjunctive in our sentences. So I have an example here. I want you to do your homework. So in Spanish, that would be yo espero que tú hagas tu tarea. So I want you to do your homework. That's a great thing to want, right? Now I have control over wanting you to do your homework because that's actually something that I want you to do. That's expressing a fact I want. Whether or not you do your homework, that's expressing uncertainty, right? I don't have any control over the second part of my sentence there. So you'll see that I've highlighted this sentence to show you that the first verb in my sentence, espero, it's in the present tense. We use the present tense there because I'm expressing a fact. The second verb there, highlighted in blue, we conjugated that verb in the subjunctive because it's expressing uncertainty. It's expressing something that I don't know whether it will happen or not. So it's not really in the present tense, right? Because present tense, there are things that are happening right now. And I can't even use the future tense because I don't know that it will happen. I'm obviously not going to use the past tense because it hasn't happened yet. So we use the subjunctive to talk about things that we would like to happen, but we don't really have any control over them happening or not. All right, so let's break a sentence down and we'll be able to maybe see the different parts here a little bit better. So I've got a sentence, yo quiero que ustedes laven los platos. Yo quiero que ustedes laven los platos. I want you all to wash the plates. So you'll see that I've got my first subject there, which is yo, so I. And then I have the verb that goes along with my first subject. So yo quiero, I want. And that first verb is going to be in the present tense because it is something that's actually happening right now. Like right now in this moment, I'm wanting something. The next part of the sentence there is K. Think of that just as a connecting word. It's connecting the first part of your sentence with the second part of your sentence. You're going to notice that the first part of the sentence is in the present tense, and the second part of the sentence is in the subjunctive. So then we move on after the K, and we find our second subject there. So ustedes. So you all. Ustedes is the person that I'm wanting to do some action for me. So ustedes is the second subject, and laven is the second verb. Laven is in the subjunctive because I don't know whether that action will happen. So you all washing the dishes isn't happening right now, and it might not even ever happen in the future. So since I can't use the present tense, I can't use the future tense, I'm going to use the subjunctive tense. And then you can see like any other details that you need to put into the sentence so that your listeners understand what you're saying can just go wherever, usually at the end of the sentence. So los platos just get attached to the end. But the important thing to see here is that you're really putting two sentences together. So your first sentence has a subject and your verb. Your second subject has, your second part of your sentence has a new subject and a new verb. You're putting those both together with the connecting word K. All right, so you and I both know that there's more than one way to say that you want something in English. So it makes sense that there's more ways to say what you want or what you wish in Spanish. And here's just a few examples of some common verbs that express wanting. And we can use these verbs in our sentences with the subjunctive just to give a little bit more variety. So, desear means to want. Esperar means to wish or to hope. Necesitar means to need. Preferir means to prefer. And querer means to want. You'll notice that the last two verbs, preferir and querer, are E to IE stem changers. And keep in mind that all of these verbs here, they're all the verbs that we would use for the first verb in our sentence. So they're going to be in the present tense. You'll need to be able to conjugate these verbs in the present tense. So if you do not remember the present tense, you'll want to review and practice that because you'll be using the present tense and the subjunctive tense in the same sentence. So all of these verbs will be in the present tense. Now let's look at some ejemplos. I have 4 different sentences here for you, and we'll work through these. So, Wilfredo quiere que Marcos ayude con los quehaceres. Wilfredo wants Marcos to help with the chores. So Wilfredo is actually wanting something here, right? And so the first verb, quiere, is in the present tense. The second verb there, ayudar, is in the subjunctive. So we conjugate it ayude because we're not really sure if Marcos is going to end up helping with the chores. He might help with the chores or he might not help with the chores. You'll notice one thing here that in English, we don't really have a subjunctive tense. We just pretty much use the present tense or even the present tense, just like the infinitive for both of our verbs. So that's why the subjunctive is just a little bit hard to understand for us as English speakers because we don't really use a subjunctive in any of these sentences. So if you're trying to translate these sentences, don't overthink it. It's just translating it into the present tense. So there's not really like a subjunctive tense in English. The second example here, yo espero que ellos hagan las camas. I hope that they make the beds. Now, one thing that I want to point out in this sentence is notice that your subject changes. And so you need to make sure that you conjugate your verb correctly. So my first subject is yo. So that's why I conjugate esperar to espero. I end it with an O in the present tense to match my yo form. The second subject of my sentence is ellos, so they. So that's why I need to make sure that I end hagan like I do. I need to make sure that I end in an an, which matches my subject ellos. So yo espero que ellos hagan las camas. Number 3, tú deseas que nosotros comamos en el restaurante chino. You want us to eat at the Chinese restaurant. In the last sentence, mis padres necesitan que yo escriba una carta. My parents need me to write a letter. So again, something that my parents want or that they need, but it's a whole nother thing of whether it will actually happen or not. I mean, of course, hopefully it will happen, right? But there's just no guarantee. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. Okay, clase. So one final thing before we wrap up our lesson for today. Ten cuidado with this new concept that we're learning because it is a little bit more complicated than some of the other tenses and concepts and things like that that we've learned throughout the year. We normally have only talked about one tense at a time. We did there for a little while talk about the preterite and the imperfect tense at the same time. But now we're talking about using two different tenses in the same sentence. So we've just got to make sure that we're not getting those tenses mixed up. Of course, that's why we've waited until the end of the year to introduce this topic because it is just a little bit more difficult. But if you pay attention to the pattern, then I don't think that this will actually be that tricky for you. You're going to notice a pattern. The first verb in every sentence is always going to be in the present tense. So right here on the screen is what you can expect some of your quizzes and tests and things to look like. So the first blank that you see, that the verb that you're going to put there is going to be in the present tense. The second blank that you see is going to be in the subjunctive. All right. So that pattern will always hold true. I'm not going to throw anything in there and mix it up. The other thing that you want to be careful with is that your subjects change. So in this example, Sam prefiere que ellos hablen en español. Notice that you have two different subjects. You have Sam and you have they or ellos. So you need to make sure that your verb prefiere matches Sam, but then your verb hablar needs to match ellos. So you don't want to say hable, you want to say hablen to match ellos. And again, of course, it's in the subjunctive. So be careful with that. Make sure that you're paying attention to those details in the sentence, because otherwise it will be really easy to get those things mixed up and maybe miss some points that way. So just take your time with it. All right, so for some of you guys, I think that we need just a little bit extra practice on identifying our subjects. I've noticed that a lot of times you guys know the correct tense, and you know all the different forms, whether it's for yo or to, él, ella, usted, but sometimes you get confused with who your subject is. So I want to review that with you guys. Some of you know those really well, so you can go ahead and finish up and move on to your next thing. For those of you who will find this helpful, go ahead and stick around here for a couple minutes. So the first subject that you have to be looking for is yo or I. That one's pretty easy, right? You're never going to see anything else that would get you confused with that. Another subject is to. Again, you don't need to worry about that one. Whenever you see to, you'll know that it is you. If you are looking at él, ella, and usted, I think that's the one that people can get confused on sometimes, right? We've got el, ella, and usted. But those aren't the only ones that fit in to that category. Whenever you see a person's name, that would also fit into this category. So if you see Anna, if you see Isabel, whenever it's just one person, it can't be multiple people, but whenever it's just one person, then you would use the el, ella, usted. You could have Daniel, David. So the main thing with the el, ella, usted form is it's just going to be one person. So there's not going to be multiple people mentioned. Nosotros is another one that can sometimes get mixed up because there's more ways to say we than just nosotros. So you can say nosotros if you would like, but you also might see phrases like this, mi familia, y yo, or mis amigos, y yo. You could even see a group of several people, including yourself, like Ana, Daniel, y yo. And for all of these here, they're all going to need the verb in the nosotros form. But the nice thing is that the key here, or the thing that you're looking for, is that yo. So if you see the yo in there, along with a group of other people that are mentioned, then you know that you're going to be using the nosotros form. The last subject that we might have is ellos, ellas, and ustedes. And the other way that you might see this written is if there's several people mentioned, but none of the people mentioned are you. So, for example, you could have Adriel y Jose. You could have, I gotta switch over there. You could have mis padres. You could have mis amigas. You could have Lady, Cynthia, y mi hermana. Basically, for all of these, it's a group of people, so two or more people, but you are not included. So when you're not included, you're going to be using the form ellos, ellas, ustedes for your verbs. So just in summary, if it's yo, it's always going to be I. If it's two, it's always going to be you. For el, ella, usted, it's whenever you're talking about just one individual person. For nosotros, it's whenever you're talking about two or more people, but that group always includes you. So it always includes yo. For ellos, ellas, ustedes, it's always when you're talking about two or more people, but it does not include you. Hope that helps.